When I found my dad shivering inside his half-frozen $750,000 log cabin in the middle of a brutal Wyoming winter, my heart dropped. I thought he'd had a heart attack. Turns out, it wasn't his health that had failed him. It was the power. The culprit? HOA President Evelyn from the so-called Harmony Ridge Eco-Village had reported his generator for disrupting the natural serenity. What she didn't know was that my dad, Thomas Granger, writes the regulations for the entire regional power grid. This was his grid. She was messing with a master. I crunched through the snow, boots heavy with dread and confusion, wondering why my childhood sanctuary now resembled a haunted set from a true crime show. No smoke curled from the chimney. No glow lit the windows. Just frost climbing the glass like skeletal fingers. Inside, my dad sat wrapped in 3 sleeping bags, sipping something warm from a battered thermos, wearing the calm of a man who was either broken or plotting the downfall of an empire. "Dad? What the hell?" I asked, stepping inside. He looked up, unfazed. "Hey, kiddo." Evelyn had my generator shut down. Evelyn? The HOA president from the eco-village. Said it was disturbing the environmental harmony. She filed a complaint with the utility provider, and they cut it off yesterday. Now, when my dad says filed a complaint, he means Evelyn exploited a minor clause about urban noise complaints, a clause never meant for isolated, off-grid properties like his. For weeks, she'd been flying her drone over our land under the guise of community safety. In reality, she was searching for leverage, any excuse to force compliance with her fantasy of suburban wilderness control. It took me mere seconds to go from worried daughter to vengeful strategist. My dad, the chillest man alive, even looked like he was ready to launch a Lexus into a ravine. You see, he's not just a cabin enthusiast. He's the senior regulatory consultant for the 5-county energy authority. He helped write the emergency grid compliance protocols. Cutting his power based on shaky drone footage was not just dumb, it was begging for retribution. We spent that night boiling snow for tea using a propane heater I found in the garage, playing Frontier Pioneers with Wi-Fi and satellite reception. Over dehydrated chili and slightly charred toast, he laid out his response. No explosions, no theatrics, just a slow, surgical dismantling of Evelyn's self-appointed empire. "She thinks she has power," he said, sipping tea. "I'm going to remind her where it actually comes from." Evelyn had moved into her eco-utopia about 6 months ago. Within 3 weeks, she'd invented an environmental standards board and started pressuring others to adopt her fabricated community charter. My dad, a sane man, politely told her to buzz off. She didn't take it well. So she manipulated an emergency clause to file a priority noise complaint backed only by shaky drone footage and a PDF from a noise meter app. Because of legal protocol, the utility company had to act on it. They assumed it was real. Big mistake. Dad was already 10 steps ahead. The next morning, coffee in hand, he asked, "You still good at keeping a straight face in meetings?" "Define meeting," I said, rubbing sleep from my eyes. "HOA emergency standards session. She's holding it at the community lodge. You should go." The lodge was a modern fortress of reclaimed wood, solar panels, and virtue signaling coffee cups. Inside, it was warm and glowing with people who looked like they thought composting was a personality. Evelyn stood at the front, droning on about visual neutrality and acoustic contamination. She even claimed fossil fuel odors psychologically disrupted snowshoe hairs. I nearly laughed out loud. I introduced myself as a concerned visitor staying with my father. She twitched at the mention of him. "Ah," she said, "the gentleman with the rather loud generator." Then came the pitch, a voluntary buffer zone around Harmony Ridge with sound and sight restrictions, all designed to pressure cabin owners into submission without actual legal authority. I raised one question. Just one. What legal power does your HOA have over privately owned properties outside your development? Evelyn blinked but smiled. "We influence providers through data, petitions, and community partnerships. Perfectly legal." Translation: we throw around enough buzzwords and paperwork to scare companies into submission. My dad was right. She was weaponizing bureaucracy. Outside, I chatted with a few residents. One had lost power for 6 hours last week because Evelyn downgraded their repair priority for grid balance. Another had their snowmobile reported as a non-harmonious winter vehicle. She wasn't managing a community. She was building a dictatorship. I called Dad. He'd already pulled the complaint she filed. It was pure fiction, fake decibel levels, no inspection, drone video as the only proof. The noise level she claimed was louder than a chainsaw. It didn't even match the generator's output. That was enough to trigger a formal utility review. But Dad didn't stop there. He revised the emergency shutdown protocols to require certified third-party environmental reports. No more apps. No more drones. No more Karen science. Then he filed an audit request on all emergency complaints from the past 6 months. Every one of Evelyn's was on it. Meanwhile, I interviewed other targeted residents. One had been fined for aggressively stacked firewood. Another's solar panels were flagged for skyline disharmony. It was surreal. Evelyn didn't see the storm coming, but she was still pushing. Her drone reappeared the next night, floating silently in the dark. We watched it from the window. "It's trespassing now," Dad said. He didn't wait. Walked outside, shotgun in hand, and fired a single warning shot into the air. The drone fled like a startled bird. He turned to me and said, "Time to call the FAA." Filing a complaint was shockingly simple. Her drone? Unregistered. Flying under legal altitude. Capturing private property. Add audio? Possible wiretap violations. We submitted everything, her footage, our screenshots, timestamps. She didn't even blink when we drove past her later, drone controller in hand, waving smugly. She thought she was untouchable. She wasn't. Dad sent a formal memo to the utility provider. Explained how Evelyn gamed the system. Attached evidence. Within 48 hours, every one of her complaints was suspended pending investigation. Cabin owners cheered. One guy brought elk jerky to say thanks. Evelyn? She lost it. Sent a community-wide email titled "Noise Terrorism and the Return of Chaos." Blamed unnamed saboteurs. Warned of eco-bullying. It was glorious. But it didn't end there. During a routine target shooting trip, her drone buzzed overhead again, flying directly over the range. FAA minimums? Violated. Safety? Ignored. Dad looked at me. I nodded. Boom. One clean shot. The drone exploded midair. Evelyn arrived minutes later, screaming about property destruction and civil liberties. Dad calmly recited FAA regulations. I added, "Your footage might include your own crimes." The FAA investigator who called days later confirmed it. Multiple violations. Thousands in fines possible. And then the utility audit landed. 20+ complaints. All falsified. Identical noise levels. Copy-paste jobs. Some even referred to generators that hadn't been online for weeks. Fraud, pure and simple. Evelyn was stripped of her status as Community Environmental Consultant, a title she invented. Her HOA board voted to remove her as president. 8-1. The one was her. She appealed. Blamed conspiracies. No one listened. Her neighbors were done. And then? A letter from the State Energy Compliance Division. They wanted my dad to testify in a broader investigation. Evelyn had been peddling her fake standards across other HOAs. She was patient zero. That compiled everything. Every lie. Every violation. Every form. Every timeline. Meanwhile, I collected witness statements. Fines for snow-disrupting yard debris. Fines for psychological odor pollution. No, I'm not kidding. When Dad testified, the board didn't need convincing. They knew. She was done. And the cherry on top? Her neighborhood lost its priority repair status. My dad signed the downgrade himself. They went from level 2 to level 4, bottom of the list. That week, a blizzard hit. No power. No cell service. No generator. Because she'd never owned one. Hypocrisy had a price. 3 days in the cold. Frozen pipes. Spoiled food. The solar batteries died before dawn. Her glass lodge turned into an icy tomb. We were fine. Warm. Federal relaxed. Word spread. Neighbors laughed. Some offered help for a price. She refused. Then came the news segment. HOA president abuses power, frozen out in winter storm. They didn't name her. They didn't need to. The HOA board apologized. Restructured. Evelyn was out. Her emails blocked. Civil suits mounted. A week later, a thank you card arrived. Inside was a $20 diner gift card. It read, "Thanks for standing up when the rest of us were too tired." That's when I knew this wasn't just revenge. It was justice. Now, when people visit the cabin and see the shotgun on the wall and the tub labeled FAA evidence by the firewood, they ask. We just smile and say, it's a long story. But she earned every second of it.